had my guitar on my back.
Country music has always worn its heart on its sleeve, but beneath the steel string shimmer lurk tales so eerie they could chill a barroom at high noon. The genre's greatest lyricists turned real darkness into twang, hiding confessions, warnings, and whispered legends inside familiar chord progressions. Tonight we slip past the neon signs and polite smiles, traveling into the shadows where melody meets menace. These stories are not merely sad or bittersweet. They're unsettling, prophetic, and in some cases too disturbing to play twice, yet they keep calling listeners back with the curious magnetism of a flickering porch light at midnight. Eddie Noakes' Psycho opens like a gentleman's monologue, yet every polite syllable drips with blood. Recorded in 1968, the song calmly details a string of murders: a lover, a mother, strangers on the street. Radio stations recoiled, branding it too depraved for rotation. What spooked insiders most was Noack himself. Friends said he carried an unspoken weight after cutting the track, drifting between dive gigs and dime store studios until his body finally quit a decade later. Some old pickers swear the vinyl develops hairline cracks faster than most pressings, as though the groove itself can't endure the violence it contains. Old DJs who spun advance copies swear that when the record faded, they could hear their own heartbeat louder than the applause light, as if Noak had reached out of the grooves to remind them the violence wasn't fiction but a dare. Would they risk airing it anyway? Few ever did, fearing midnight phone calls. Not every grave tale ends with the wrongdoer. In Long Black Veil, Lefty Frizzell sings of a man wrongly charged with murder. Clearing his name would expose an affair with his best friend's wife, so he stays silent, accepts the noose, and lets loyalty become an unmarked grave. The woman, forever cloaked in mourning, visits at night when the wind is cold and moonless. Listeners assumed it was pure folklore until historians traced a similar 19th century case, adding true dirt to the legend's boots. The song's power lies in what remains unsaid, the secret voice behind her veil, rustling like dry leaves against stone. Tour guides near the old courthouse tell couples that singing the chorus under a new moon guarantees eternal secrecy. Yet locals avoid the square on those nights. They claim a chill sweeps through the oak limbs, smelling of cheap perfume and rope, and anyone whispering confessions there risks hearing a whispered answer from the gallows. David Allan Coe took a pre-dawn drive through rural Alabama and claimed to meet a ghost with a Cadillac and a challenge. The Ride recounts that encounter, where the spirit of Hank Williams supposedly tests Coe's devotion to the road. Fans dismiss it as storytelling bravado until they visit the lonely stretch outside Montgomery and feel the air turn electric. Coe insists the experience was real, and skeptics grow quiet when he describes details of Hank's final night that never made newspapers. Whether apparition or allegory, the song warns that success often demands a toll paid in restless nights and doubtful company. Truckers on Highway 31 report seeing headlights in their mirrors, a pale Cadillac sliding behind them, then vanishing when they switch lanes. They tap the brakes anyway, remembering the song's warning that ambition is always weighed by the dead, and sometimes the toll collector wears a cowboy hat and grin just before the county line. Harmony can't soften every horror. Knoxville Girl floats on sweet acoustic guitars while a narrator methodically beats his sweetheart, tosses her into a river, and watches the water run red. The lyric descends from a centuries-old British murder ballad that migrated across the Appalachians, gathering regional dust and darker verses. When the Louvain brothers recorded it, their spotless harmonies only magnified the brutality. The real chill arrives in the finale, where the killer lies in prison without remorse, certain his lullaby will outlive any earthly sentence. Mountain folk swear the river still turns cloudy every spring, as though the silt remembers her blood better than their banjos remember the melody. When the current runs brown, parents pull children away from the bank, afraid the song's smiling killer might surface, still humming, still looking for a dance partner on the moonlit shoal. George Jones built his legend on aching honesty, yet He stopped loving her today slipped a funeral into radio rotation without most audiences noticing on first listen. The man in the lyric clings to devotion until the ultimate quiet finally makes him let go. The coffin lid. Jones's quivering delivery, recorded between bouts of personal chaos, turned the twist into something spectral, as though the departed singer were leaning over the mic from beyond. Many consider it country's greatest single, proof that heartbreak can masquerade as a ghost story and earn standing ovations. Studio engineers noticed an odd flutter on the tape when Jones hit the final word, a pulse that didn't match any instrument. One archivist isolated the sound and joked it resembled a faint exhale, the last breath the narrator releases before silence. Nobody could scrub it, so they left it haunting the master forever afterward. Bobby Gentry's ode to Billy Joe drifts like humid air across a Delta kitchen table, soft voices discussing a boy who leapt from Tallahatchie Bridge. Plates clatter, biscuits pass. Life continues indifferent to tragedy. The unanswered question, what did he toss into the river just before he jumped, has fueled half a century of whispered theories, a love letter, a wedding ring, a secret child. Gentry sealed her lips, letting the mystery ferment. Tourists still stand on that bridge, staring down at water that answers questions with more ripples. Visitors toss flowers from the span now, hoping for revelation. Yet fishermen claim nothing ever breaks the surface except catfish and unanswered questions. Some nights they hear a splash with no figure on the rails, followed by a voice beneath the pilings reciting the third verse in a trembling tenor echoing across the cypress swamp. Johnny Cash revisited an old folk crime in Delia's Gone, narrating a killing like a man was supposed to do, his baritone flat as a judge's gavel in an empty courthouse. When he filmed the video inside Tennessee State Prison, inmates lined the tiers to watch, some nodding in grim recognition. Critics gasped at the unapologetic tone, yet the man in black understood that evil delivered calmly is more terrifying than any scream. Delia's name lingers long after the guitars fade, as if the prison walls themselves still mouth her story. Years after the video shoot, guards reported a single guitar note drifting through cell block C at dawn, although no musician was housed there. Old-timers nodded, saying Delia walks the tier before sunrise, following the man who bragged of putting her down. The warden replaced the strings on Cash's stage prop. The ghost kept playing. Hank Snow's Miller's Cave drives revenge into subterranean darkness. Cuckolded and enraged, the narrator leads his lover and her paramour into a cavern where even daylight seems reluctant to enter. The bodies stay hidden, the killer walks free, and the cave becomes a co-conspirator. Locals claim the real Miller's Cave whispers on certain evenings, wind curling through stone like the song's final guitar riff. Whether you believe that or not, the track suggests that nature sometimes accepts our sins and seals the entrance behind us. Cavers exploring the recesses sometimes find scratches on the limestone spelling initials matching the victims in the lyric, though state records list no missing persons. Rangers chalk it up to pranksters, but anyone camping nearby hears dripping water alternate with footsteps, measuring each hour until dawn like a murderer's patient heartbeat underground beneath the ridges. Over by the Ohio River, a tender duet masks lethal resolve. In banks of the Ohio, the suitor pleads marriage, gets refused, and answers with a blade. Versions date back to the 19th century, but when Porter Wagoner joined Dolly Parton for their rendition, the juxtaposition of cozy harmony and fatal outcome felt especially jarring. Tour guides now point to stretches of riverbank as the possible crime scene, though records are murky. Water is patient. It keeps secrets as easily as it keeps stones. Dolly confessed in interviews that singing the murder line felt like ice in her throat, as if the victim were squeezing her windpipe from under the river. During live shows, the lights often flicker when that verse arrives, prompting nervous laughter that dies quickly, replaced by an uneasy urge to watch the exits for shadows. Townes Van Zandt once said, "Poncho and Lefty came to him half dreaming in a Dallas motel. the entire tale arriving before sunrise. Fans debate whether Poncho represents Mexican bandit Pancho Villa, a nameless outlaw, or Towns himself. The sharper sting lies with Lefty, who betrays his friend for gold, then drifts northward to live and die in cheap hotels, forever glancing over his shoulder. When Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard covered the song, the myth galloped onto mainstream airwaves, and listeners everywhere felt the dust settle on a moral too heavy to carry. On barroom jukeboxes, the song often skips exactly where Poncho is caught, then resumes as if nothing happened, a glitch no technician can trace. Superstitious patrons tap the glass and swear they feel a dusty hand slap theirs away, reminding them betrayals echo long after the gold spends and the border closes beyond the desert. Fancy struts with rhinestones and swagger, yet beneath the glam sparkles a grim transaction. A destitute mother paints her teenage daughter's face, slips her into a revealing crimson dress, and tells her to charm any man who can lift them from poverty. The daughter rises to wealth and influence, but the triumph tastes of abandonment and manipulation. Reba McEntire's powerhouse cover turned the narrative into an anthem, though many fans confess a shiver when they imagine that first night in the carriage, wheels rattling like distant applause before the show even begins. Backstage after one performance, a seamstress swears she saw a red dress walk down the corridor with nobody wearing it, hem swishing as if responding to applause. She quit the tour that night, claiming ambition can stitch a garment so dazzling it burns the wearer invisible, leaving only perfume and regret to strut across eternity. If you stroll under willow branches in certain hollows, you might still hear the faint refrain of "Down in the Willow Garden." Its Appalachian melody is gentle as falling petals, yet the lyrics detail poisoning with wine, stabbing by riverlight, and a corpse sinking without a ripple. The song predates recorded sound, carried by travelers who added verses to heighten the dread. When the Everly Brothers harmonized the tale, the contrast between silken voices and gruesome content captured the unsettling coldness of violence committed for reasons now lost. Botanists studying the grove noticed willow leaves browning in perfect circles after stormy nights, as though acid splattered upward from the soil. Their tests found nothing unusual, yet one intern recorded a lullaby on the wind, sweet at first, turning sharp on the final phrase, like a blade sliding from paper into flesh without warning. Desperation can push a soul past the point of return, as chronicled in The Ballad of Hollis Brown. Bob Dylan penned it, but Leon Russell's country-tinged cover under his Hank Wilson alias delivered the story like a dust-choked sermon. A farmer starved and driven mad by want extinguishes his family's suffering and his own, trading earthly agony for unknown silence. Modern critics call it a bleak social alarm, yet some listeners report feeling the room temperature drop when Russell's voice slips into that final barren chord. Old farmhouses near the Dakotas sometimes stand abandoned with family photographs turned face down, breakfast plates still on the table, dust layered but undisturbed. Locals shrug and say the owners left after hearing Hollis on a battery radio during a blizzard, convinced the song predicted their own winter and chose not to wait for spring. Heartbreak rarely feels colder than in Hank Williams's Cold, Cold Heart. To casual ears, it's a lament for love turned to ice, but backstage gossip insisted Hank wrote it less as sorrow and more as recrimination, wielding melody like a dagger aimed at his estranged wife. His quaver carries not only pain but obsession, the kind that lingers long after whiskey bottles empty. Folks at the Opry recall evenings when Hank performed it as if trying to thaw the song with sheer force, only to walk off stage shivering. Collectors replay acetates of the original session and report the piano drifting out of tune midway, though the instrument checked perfect minutes before. They imagine frost spreading along the strings, bending pitch like a sigh, turning brittle. Hank's voice fights against the chill, but the echo chamber swallows the warmth, leaving frostbite on every syllable. We end in New Orleans, where stories never truly die. Bobby Bear's Marie Laveau bounces along with tongue-in-cheek verses, Yet the legend beneath it is older than the cypress poles in St. Louis Cemetery. Marie, voodoo queen and reputed miracle broker, is said to grant wishes if you dare scratch 3 crosses on her tomb and leave an offering. Bear's song warns of a suitor who fakes affection, steals her treasure, and disappears with only a scream to mark his exit. Tourists still report strange chills near her crypt, wondering if the price for broken promises is payable in worldly coins or restless dreams. At midnight tours, the guide asks everyone to place a finger on the tomb, then counts heads after the lights flicker. There is always one extra shadow, taller than the group's tallest guest, wearing what looks like a broad-brimmed hat. The gate locks itself until someone drops a silver dollar and backs away in silence. What ties these 15 songs together isn't merely murder, betrayal, or restless spirits. It's the way ordinary voices deliver extraordinary dread. A waltz tempo can hide a confession, and a sweet harmony can smuggle a threat past daytime radio. The artist may have intended only to entertain, yet stories have lives of their own once the final chord fades. Many who penned or performed these tracks battled demons that eerily echoed the lyrics. Booze, pills, lost love, backroad wrecks, even rumors of self-destruction whispered backstage before promoters drew the curtain. Consider a record spinning late at night, needle-tracing grooves etched decades ago. Each turn draws the past into the present, reanimating voices that might prefer to rest. A listener leans in, thinks they hear an unintended breath between words, a faint thump not listed in the session notes. Is it just studio noise, or the song reaching forward, reminding us that stories coded into music remain active, hunting new ears? Whenever you press play, you participate in the spell, granting the tale another life. Classic country is more than rhinestones and heartbreak. It's a lantern held up to the darker corridors of human nature, illuminating greed, obsession, vengeance, and regrets too heavy to carry alone. These songs endure because they dare to ask what happens after the deed, after the burial, after the bridge jump. When silence and consequence settle like dust, they warn us that every choice etches itself somewhere, onto cave walls, riverbanks, marble tombs, or the vinyl stacked in your attic. Keep listening, the night always records everything. The next time a familiar tune drifts from a jukebox, pause before you hum along. Ask yourself whose footsteps echo behind that melody, whose secret lies curled in the final verse, and whether the singer was storyteller, witness, or unwilling participant. Country music's creepiest legends remind us that art can outlive flesh, that a 3-minute song might reflect an entire lifetime of shadows, and that some ghosts prefer a steel guitar for company as they wait in the dark for their story to be told again. Yet none of these chills can survive without the listener, the final conspirator who drops a coin, lifts a needle, or clicks a playlist in a streaming app. Your heartbeat joins the rhythm, your memories color the imagery, and suddenly the murders, betrayals, and spectral warnings feel personal. Maybe that odd creak in the hallway tonight is just settling wood, or maybe it's a lovelorn wanderer from Long Black Veil checking whether you sang the chorus correctly. When dawn creeps through the blinds, you'll remember these stories and decide whether to chase them away with coffee or spin the record again, daring the past to speak. Country music keeps its horrors polite, but politeness can hide anything: rattling chains, cracked mirrors, or a red dress swishing through corridors. Keep your ears open. The songs are waiting, patient as graves, eager for another midnight audience of brave souls. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.